Hey everybody, it's the Drunk Werewolf, and in today's episode we are going to be reacting to Courtney Ryan. 63% of men under 30 are single. So let's get into it.
Today, we're going to be talking about the fact that 63% of men under 30 are electively single. Let that sink in for a second. I know I've covered similar topics in the past, and this is kind of old news at this point, but I wanted to go through this with you guys and share some of my thoughts from a woman's perspective here, and even more specifically, a woman who makes content for men. Because the reality is that we are experiencing a tectonic shift in dating, and I see a lot of the aftermath in my comment section, in my DMs, in terms of questions that I receive from you guys, or just overall comments and your shared experiences. I actually got on my Instagram stories the other day, and I asked my followers, what are the biggest struggles you're having with dating at the moment? I had men and women answer, mostly men, of course, and I'll actually be sharing some of the most common responses I got later in the video after I go through some stats and other info first. But before we get into the stats, big thanks to AG1 for sponsoring today's video. AG1 is a comprehensive, all-in-one foundational nutrition that serves every single physical demand, no matter how busy your schedule is. Sustainable routines are key. My daily morning routine that I genuinely look forward to. My AG1 minute is something that I make sure I never digestion. AG1 includes key energy players, all synergistically working to maintain energy levels, support adrenal health, and perform optimally. I love it so much, I've been recommending it to all of my friends. Interested in checking out AG1, tap my link to get a 1-year supply of immune-supporting vitamin D3K2 and 5 travel packs free with your first purchase. So now I just wanted to highlight some of the major statistics that I found on this topic. The first one being here that 63% of men under 30 are electively single, as I mentioned, and this is up from 51% in 2019. Experts are blaming erotic alone time online as a major culprit. The next one.
Oh my fucking god, are you serious? 63% of men under 30 are electively single. We know that. But it's been a 12% jump since 2019. And experts are blaming prawn or grape. I mean, not or grape, I meant or corn. Mixed up my words.
One, in the worst case scenario, the young American man's social disconnect can have tragic consequences. Young men commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. The next statistic here is that women now collect nearly 60% of bachelor's degrees. Another one here, as of 2022, Pew Research Center found 30% of U.S. adults are neither married, living with a partner, nor engaged in a committed relationship. Nearly half of all young adults are single, 34% of women, and a whopping 63% of men. And you're probably thinking, well, how are only 34%?
Okay, let's go back to that. We need to go back to that because look at that. Okay, so worst case scenario. The social disconnect has tragic consequences. Young men have commit suicide at 4 times the rate of young women. Yeah, that's because young women, that's the prime of their life. They're not going to commit suicide then as much because young women, they have the world at their feet and everybody loves them. Whereas with men, no one really cares about you unless you do something and be somebody. You can't just pretend to be somebody and then people will like you.
Young adults are single, 34%.
And women collect 60% of bachelor's degrees because there are laws for affirmative action that give it to women. And people like women more than they do men. It's not that hard. And the 30% of U.S. adults neither married or living with a partner or in a committed relationship is not surprising. I'm actually surprised it's not more, to be honest. Oh, that's all men and women. I'm sure that the older generation is skewing these numbers by a pretty big margin. But even then, 63% of men are single.
Percent of women and a whopping 63% of men. And you're probably thinking, well, how are only 34% of women single, but 63% of men are single? That is because a lot of women are dating the same men or going for the same men. Not great. And this one blew my mind, but honestly, I wasn't that surprised. And it says only half of single men.
Oh, but I thought women were perfect little angels. Yeah, if 63% of men and 34% of women are single, then the women are dating the same men. Because we live in a pseudo-polygamous society. It's not that hard to understand. No matter how much women want to deny it. They just go for all the same men, and when they don't get them, they stay single.
Are actively seeking relationships or even casual dates. According to Pew, that figure is declining. So I really just wanted to gather those because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the video. Those were the biggest standout statistics to me in all of the research that I did here. I think there is a lot to unpack here, and we're going to kind of get into that. So let's get going. The first thing I wanted to do is share talking about for the rest of the video. Those were the biggest standouts. Isn't that surprise? And it says only half of. So I really just wanted to gather those because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the video. Those were the biggest standout statistics to me in all of the research that I did here. I think there is a lot to unpack here, and we're going to kind of get into that. So let's get going. The first thing I wanted to do is share some of the most common Instagram responses that I got. So reading through the responses was relationships or even casual dates. According to Pew, that figure is declining. So I really just wanted to gather those because that's kind of what we're going to be not great. And this one blew my mind, but honestly, I wasn't that surprised. And it says only half of single men are.
The one that is going to shock a lot of people is the only half of single men are actively seeking relationships or even casual dates. Yeah, because most men have figured out that it just isn't worth it to do it. And thank God they are. Get your money up, go overseas, find a traditional wife, or go make Tao. I think both is a wonderful solution, but the absolute don't do solution is get married in the West and get married to these women.
Actively seeking relationships or even casual dates. According to Pew, that figure is declining. So I really just wanted to gather those because that's kind of what we're going to be talking about for the rest of the video. Those were the biggest standout statistics to me in all of the research that I did here. I think there is a lot to unpack here, and we're going to kind of get into that. So let's get going. The first thing I wanted to do is share some of the most common Instagram responses that I got. So reading through the responses was interesting because I was reading the same responses over and over and over again. And it was very easy to sift through the data and pinpoint the most common responses. And I'm going to go more in depth with some of these a bit later because I all think they kind of fit into different categories. So again, I had asked, what are the biggest struggles you're having with dating at the moment? The first thing people said was hookup culture, people only wanting casual flings, not wanting to be in a long-term relationship or anything serious. The second was social anxiety, a fear of rejection, or just the overall approach. They're scared to approach women. Next was feeling hopeless and invisible. The next was ghosting and flaking, unrealistic expectations, no matches on dating apps, and just struggling to meet women in general.
Unrealistic expectations is the big one. That should be the flashing lights because that's most women nowadays.
They don't know where to go, and worrying that they're going to end up alone. And if we have to narrow it down here, I think there are a few key reasons as to why these struggles that I just mentioned are the most common struggles that people are experiencing. I think there's a reason why these are happening and just continuing to become more prominent in people's lives. The first thing that I think is causing a lot of these problems is isolation. This here says, these statistics tell a sadder truth about this generation of men, NYU psych professor Niobe Way told the outlet. We're in a crisis of connection, Way said. Disconnection from ourselves and disconnection from each other, and it's getting worse. Absolutely agree with that. This says, in the early 1990s, 55% of men were reported to have 6 or more close friends. That percentage dwindled down to 27 in 2021, according to the American Perspective Survey. Now, 15% of men say they have no close personal friendships. Data compiled by the Survey Center on American Life found. I think a big reason for this is because men are taught to prioritize a career. After all, women tend to go for men who are more successful, who make more money, who are, have a higher social status, who do well in their career or make good money for themselves. And
the big problem is that places that men would usually go to make friends or do stuff are being kind of taken out. High school sports, it's still going, but it's not. It used to be pushed for young men to go into sports and young women. That's not as much pushed. You get shop class, PE, and stuff like that. That stuff is being pushed out of schools. Then you have male spaces like bars and like smoking lounges and stuff like that. I'm talking about like old places where men used to only be. And even on the internet, male spaces like the manosphere. It used to be just men. Now women are trying to get into it, and it takes away for the chance of actual friendships because there's always a woman there trying to suck up all the attention.
I think a lot of men also do this with the hopes that it will improve their dating life as well. Obviously, we know that women tend to look for men who are at their level or above, so it would make sense why men would then feel an extra need to prioritize their career because they think, okay, well, if I don't, then I'm probably not going to end up with the girl that I want or whatever. And as women, become more successful, we're earning 60% of bachelor's degrees. It makes sense why this is the case. Isolation is not healthy. It's obviously not good for the friendships in your life, but also for romantic relationships. It's having a lot of negative consequences there. And that leads me into my next point, which is dating apps, social media, and porn. This excerpt says, young men are watching a lot of social media, they're watching a lot of porn, and I think they're getting a lot of their needs met without having to go out. Young men are excessively turning to porn to satiate their sexual needs, which in turn is causing long-term consequences to their sexual well-being. Important aspects of mating strategy have been completely removed from dating altogether with the rise of apps and social media. You no longer get to experience the entirety of another human, and you're merely reduced to a set of photos and a one-sentence bio. But there are so many more things about men that make them attractive to women and make women like them. When you get to experience someone in person, there are so many more things that are added to the equation in terms of finding someone attractive than just the way that they look. But when you're only being exposed to the way someone looks and nothing else, and you can't experience that person at all, their humor, their charisma, the way they interact with people, the way they carry themselves, you're completely eliminating all of the other aspects that make men attractive to women. So it's no surprise that most men aren't getting matches or having any success on dating apps and therefore aren't dating. They aren't meeting people outside of their house or even from the convenience of their own homes on the apps. And the men who tend to do
I wouldn't say it's a rotation of just social media and porn that's leading to it, but that's a symptom of why men are just leaving dating alone. It's kind of the result. The reason why men aren't dating is because they go on these apps, which is how most, if not all, people meet nowadays. Through the apps, and they don't get any luck, they don't get any matches, and even if they do get a match, it probably doesn't lead to a date, and they get discouraged, and they say, it's probably better to just do my own thing, pay my own bills, not worry about a girlfriend. And I will just have porn deal with my needs, because they either can't get them or they're scared of what can happen with a woman. Because let's be real, women are dangerous nowadays for men, whether it be through marriage or whether it be catching a case. And the laws have been made, so now it's kind of, in a way, dependent on the woman. You aren't even in control of if you yourself, even if you do good actions, you could still have a bad woman who tries to say you did something you didn't. So a lot of men are just like, yeah, I don't want to deal with that headache of maybe being wrong.
Do very well on dating apps are men who are extremely attractive or take really good photos, and all the women are swiping on them and not really swiping on the average looking men, because then they swipe and see the very attractive guy and they match and they automatically think, okay, well, if I can get that, I'm not going to go for anything less than that. But it's just an illusion of options. The next cause is situationships and hookup culture. So this has had a significant impact on the dating landscape in recent years and has had a multitude of negative consequences. One being the devaluation of traditional relationships. Many people now view dating and relationships as temporary and even disposable rather than something to be cherished or nurtured over time. This can then lead to a lack of emotional intimacy and detachment when it comes to dating, and then leads to increased loneliness as more people struggle to find a genuine connection. Again, this is one of the most common responses I got when I asked people on my Instagram, what are the biggest struggles you're facing right now? Situationships, hookup culture, people just wanting to talk for months and then nothing happens, nobody wanting to commit, and a fear of commitment is another byproduct.
That nobody wanting to talk for but 4 months and nothing happens, that's women trying to suck up attention from men.
Product of this, partly caused by the illusion of endless options and the fact that people are just going through each other like hotcakes. If you're constantly thinking, oh, I can get something better, oh, I have all these options, it makes commitment a little bit scarier. The next one here is women's standards. So even seasoned researchers struggle to fully account for the relationship gap between young women and men. If single young men outnumber single young women nearly 2 to 1, then who are all of the young women dating? This says, young women are also dating and marrying slightly older men, carrying on a tradition that stretches back more than a century. The average age at first marriage is around 30 for men, 28 for women, according to census figures. Heterosexual women are getting more choosy. Women don't want to marry down to form a long-term relationship to a man with less education and earnings than herself, said Ronald Levant, professor of psychology at the University of Akron and author of several.
So heterosexual women are getting more choosy. Duh. Women don't want to marry down. No, women don't marry down, and that's why it worked best in the traditional way when the woman was at home cooking and cleaning for the family and her man, and he was making the money, because then she could look up to him, respect him, and be happy because she was better than him. And then he is just fine dating down, but she can't do that. So So she also wants to, stay at home with the kids and stuff, but if... So this is the problem, that women don't want to stay home anymore. But they want a guy who is as great as them, if not better. And it's just making it worse and worse. Like the professor says, she doesn't want someone with less education and earnings. And when you are making 60,000 plus, the average is I think for men, 48,000. You're already above average, so you have a small pool. And if you continue to make more and more money, you want, and degrees, you want more money and everything.
Several books on masculinity. Again, I've made many videos on women's standards and preferences in men, and I think the terms preferences and standards are often used interchangeably when in fact that is not how they should be used. And I think as women have this illusion of options, again, as I mentioned before, they feel as though they can be more picky with the men that they're dating. When in reality, just because you match with someone on a dating app doesn't mean that that's going to progress to the next level, or that guy that you're obsessed with isn't talking to 10 other women.
It's funny. Women know that they have two different approaches. They have one approach, which is the first approach is I want to sleep with you, which means I want to have a relationship with you and I want you to take care of me. But the second approach is, and I am really hot for you. And the second approach is that the beta bucks side, where she'll talk to a guy, she'll give him attention, but not necessarily give it up to him as much. And I want you to take care of me, money-wise, and that kind of thing. Which doesn't necessarily have to be money, but usually nowadays it is money, the beta provider. And that used to be one man. But they can't realize that they do it two different ways because they have two different type of guys they like. The guys who will provide for them and give them money, and the super hot guy. But then they get shocked that men have their own two-way system. Just because he wants to sleep with you doesn't mean he wants to have a relationship with you. There's a reason the 2 a.m. phone call is a thing, because it's 2 a.m. I want to get some, and then I don't want to talk to you during the regular hours because I'm embarrassed to be with you.
All of these points I talked about have drastically changed dating as we know it. I think dating today is much different than it even was 5 years ago. And I don't really know what the future looks like for dating. And transparently, it took me a while to make this video because I didn't just want to sit here and present all the problems to you and end on kind of a good luck, Chuck. I really want to find solutions. I want to be able to give you guys ways to fix the problems I've outlined today. So I have some thoughts about this overall, and I would obviously love to hear yours down in the comments from a male point of view. If you're a woman watching this, obviously would love to hear what you think as well. But I think really getting a male perspective here would be helpful for me. I think it's also helpful for people trying to understand this issue as a whole. But I really do think this is a cultural challenge. It doesn't benefit men or women either, truth be told. And I think it's showing a huge lack of connection between the largest participating parties of our human existence.
Yeah, that's the problem though. You can't fix it. Women don't want to give up their rights to go back to where they were at the home and they'd get their husband, even if that would probably be better for them. And they also will not lower their standards when they make money. So it'll just keep going, and men, they'll just keep leaving. This passport bros thing, it's just going to become more and more. More men will try to make money. The ones that do will get out and get families if they so choose to want that. Because there's no fixing this. you're trying to treat men like women. And the men that don't get treated like women or don't succumb when they're younger to acting like women and dressing like women and stuff like that. They're video game nerds and stuff like that, and a lot of women aren't interested in most men nowadays. And they refuse to settle for less than the top 20% of guy. So we're just going towards a decline because the laws aren't going to get changed. They aren't.
And again, although these issues are at a large scale level, I do believe that there are some things you can do as an individual that could certainly help. And of course, there are going to be aspects that are totally out of control, but I do think that it all starts with you. And these might sound silly, so bear with me, but the first solution I have is to get out of the house. We have seen that isolation is causing a lot of problems. Social media is causing a lot of problems. Not knowing where to meet women, not going anywhere, feeling stuck and alone is causing a lot of issues. So for dating success, yes, I think this will make a difference, but also for your own mental health and well-being, you could join a club.
It is not a smart idea unless you are an absolute Chad. And go to the gym 5 times a week, that kind of thing, where you're really ripped. You do not want to approach women because you never know what can happen. They can spring sexual assault on you. Even if you're just asking her a question.
Or a group, take a workout class, nurture the friendships in your life, make effort to put yourself out there and get out of the comfort of your own home. I think a lot of problems that men experience come from loneliness and isolation. So doing your best to combat both of those things by getting out and meeting people, and not even necessarily in a romantic way, friendships too. But I think this could work wonders on improving your sociability and your overall well-being. The next thing is to stop watching porn and paying for explicit content. This is instant gratification with long-term negative consequences at its finest. In my opinion, it's just no good all around. Porn makes more...
Oh, I'm so shocked. The woman saying not to watch porn. And you're on social media, which gives attention. Wow. What a hypocrite. The minute that men give up porn is the minute that women give up social media and getting a bunch of attention from random guys. It's not going to happen. That's just how it is. And yeah, it is ruining some men, but most men, they just use it for release.
More money than the NBA, Major League Baseball, and NFL combined. Let that sink in. I don't think we can act like this isn't a big deal because clearly it is. It's a rabbit hole. It creates weird and transactional experiences with women. It also keeps men isolated since you feel like you're feeling...
Relationships between men and women are transactional. I provide and protect for you, and you give me sex and give me babies. And we create a family together. It is transactional. And when men stop paying all the bills and providing and protecting, then the women leave. It's not that hard to figure out.
A sexual void without even having to leave your house or put in any effort with women. And don't get me wrong, I understand that's what some of you are looking for, but consider the fact that that is potentially part of the problem here. Another solution I have is to work on being the best you and be what you want to attract, as cliche as that sounds. I know it's easier said than done, but at the end of the day, you have to become someone that the person you want to be with would want to be with too. And I will be transparent, I have no idea what it's like to be a man. I don't know what it's like to feel so lonely that you turn to paying women on the internet to talk to you, or feeling hopeless and invisible and then not putting in any effort.
She's worried about one thing. Guys, you are a loser if you pay for porn or pay for, like, women to talk to you online. Like, OnlyFans, that is loser behavior. That is simp behavior. We are not doing that. Come on. And I know people who watch my video, they probably won't be doing that kind of thing. It's still horrible, and you should never do it. You're just wasting money. They don't care about you. Women in general don't care about you.
I don't know what that's like, transparently. I'm not trying to discredit the way that you feel or just completely neglect your own experience as a man, but I do think that being a victim and wallowing in it and becoming hateful and bitter is the worst thing that you could possibly do. And I think that being the best you that you can be is something that everyone should be striving for, men and women. And this will obviously look different from person to person, depending on who you are and what you want in life. We aren't all the same, and that's okay. But as long as you're working and making an effort towards being the best version of you, I think you're already on the right track. And again, just something to keep in mind is the better you are on your own, the more confident and happy and fulfilled you are by yourself, the more happy you're going to be when you enter a relationship and you're with someone else too. Really, the point I want to make with this video is that we are obviously having some issues, right? If 63% of men under 30 are single, we have some problems. And I think by bringing awareness to that and just really going through some of the statistics and making people aware can really make a huge difference, especially, I don't want to toot my own horn here, but from a woman's perspective, I think sometimes our society or just people online don't necessarily take men seriously. And I'm really, truly, I know that sounds so grifty of me to say that, but I mean that to my core. I think a lot of the time, sometimes it resonates with people more, and more women start to listen when they hear it from other women too. So
They don't listen. You know you're grifting, and you can tell just by that statement, because you know that most women don't listen. Most of the time what it is you take the man's talking points of stuff we've learned in this community, and we've bounced off of ideas for each other, and you don't necessarily give the credit to those men that have those points. You kind of try to repurpose it as your own.
I really just wanted to highlight this issue.
So, repurposing it as your own, I mean, that's fine, but don't act like it's anything more than you're pretty or hot and you want to get the money from the simps and the comments and the ad revenue.
Make it known, give you guys my thoughts and my perspective from a woman's point of view. But overall, I just want you to know that I hear you, I see you. When I ask you on my Instagram what the biggest struggles you're facing when it...
Okay, this video's over. She's just pandering now. So yeah, people are noticing the problem. Courtney Ryan's more of a mainstream, like kind of outside the red pill, like pseudo red pill, but kind of outside of it. And she's starting to notice. Everybody's starting to notice. And sooner or later, hopefully, people will go to other countries like the Philippines and stuff like that to find wives. Because they're not here. So, you have a good one, and I'll see you guys in the next one.